Hey, welcome back to Startup Screen Printing. My name is Jesse. Today I want to talk to you guys about Illustrator and specifically vector versus raster artwork and how I use image trace to convert raster images that I get from clients into vector. I'll just want to show you my settings so that you can replicate this. This is just a starting point for me. It's where I start off all artwork that I'm trying to convert, and it gets me most of the way, and I find it quite useful. So anytime I've gotten a new computer and needed to install a fresh version of Illustrator, I always be sure I create this preset so that it helps me whenever I need to convert raster into vector. So first I want to talk about what raster and vector image types are. If you don't already know, if you know this, just skip this part. There are two types of images, right? There's raster and there's vector. The difference is raster images are going to be things that are like a photograph. They're typically end in JPEG, JPG, PNG, GIF, BMP even. Those are all considered raster image types. And what that means is they're made up of a bunch of pixels, right? And they're made up of a specific number of pixels. Now, how many pixels per inch just depends on the dimensions of the image and how it's originally created. So if you take an image that is 6 inches wide and it has 72 pixels per inch, which is what you're going to get with online images and things that are displaying on computers, because web stuff is all based on a 72 pixel per inch standard. So when you have those raster images, you cannot increase that image from 6 inches to 10 inches because you've only got 72 pixels per inch to work with. And so as you stretch that, now you have less than 72 pixels per inch to work with. Now, the reverse is true. If you have an image that is 72 pixels per inch wide, as far as the density of it, and then it's 10 inches wide and you shrink it down to 6 inches, it's going to have more pixels per inch than 72. So you can gain a bit of resolution by making an image smaller. But the problem with raster images is they cannot be increased in size without losing resolution. And in fact, when you have things like a JPEG, a JPG versus things like a TIFF, TIFF, a JPEG is what's known as a lossy format, meaning every time you open and save a JPEG image, whether you do anything to manipulate that image or not, that image loses quality because the JPEG standard, the JPG file type, is a lossy file type. Now, there are versions of raster file types that are known as lossless, meaning you can open and close them an unlimited number of times and they do not lose any quality of the image. So, when you work with those, you have a little bit more freedom and flexibility and less restrictions, less to worry about as far as losing quality. But with something like a JPEG, if you open and save and close a JPEG image, hundreds of times, the image you end with and the image you started with are going to be different quality because you have lost quality each time that you've saved a JPEG image. When it comes to screen printing, the issue with raster images is partly because it cannot be increased, and oftentimes we get images from customers that are so small to begin with that poses an issue, right? Now we need to increase this to a full front or full back size, and they've given us something that's just a couple of inches wide, and maybe it's only 72 pixel density. So we can't increase that size without losing quality. But also when you get ready to actually print that file and create a film, your RIP software, if you're using RIP software, needs to be able to detect spot colors. And so with a raster image, there are no spot colors. Those are actually RGB colors. And so or it could be CMYK, but most of the time it's RGB. So you need to be able to convert that file to spot colors, and the only way to do that is to be able to convert that to vector. So what is vector? Vector is actually a mathematical file type. So it's more like a code-based file type. And so when you have a vector image, it is actually in the back end of that image, in the code base, the core of that file, there are mathematical equations and formulas that are telling the computer and the software, anything that's opening it and using it, where the colors and the objects need to be in that file based on, formulas and all the math in the back end. The great thing about that is you could take a 2-inch wide file, an object that you open up that's vector, and it was created at just 2 inches wide, but it's totally vector. You can pass that on to a print company that's going to put it on a billboard, and they could expand that to 50 feet wide, and there will be zero loss of quality. And when you open and save and close that file, there will never be a loss of quality because it is a lossless format, because it does not rely on pixels. There are no pixels in a vector file. So where that helps screen printing is exactly where the raster image falls short. With vector files, you can have spot colors. You tell that file the formulas that a specific spot color will cover an entire area. And so there are objects in there. And so now we can actually print, and our RIP software can detect the spot colors, and we can set spot colors through certain areas and print multiple films, and everything works out great. Like I said, there are some possibilities with raster images, and there are some ways to do this with screen printing. But when you're just getting started, or you're learning, especially with Photoshop or Illustrator, and you're starting to do your own artwork and you've been outsourcing that, I think this will really help you out. So you're going to get people who send you raster images, and you need to convert those to vector to make your life easier. And especially if you have limited experience, and you have limited resources as far as RIP software and how you're outputting these files. So let's take a look at how I convert images from raster to vector, and I hope this will help you out. So if we jump over, I've got Illustrator open here, and I've got a couple of image examples. I just pulled these off of Google. These are just logo examples. And, let's say that somebody sent me this, and I need to convert this to vector. Now, if I try and print this on my RIP software, it has no idea that this is a color and that this is a different color, and really what color to even output as the file, because these are RGB colors. This is a photograph. This is a JPEG. And so it's not going to print me a quality film with this. In fact, it probably won't print anything at all. It'll just be a blank film. Or it might just be a black square. So it's not going to be beneficial for screen printing. So what I need to do is convert this to vector. Now, there are two ways I could do this. I could try and find the font, find whatever this font is if I don't already know, or maybe my customer has the font file and they can send that to me, make sure it's licensed. And then I can type out the text, and then I could take my pen tool and, I could go through here and, slowly but surely replicate or recreate this image. I could do this by hand, and this one's not super detailed, so it could work out. I could do this. It's not a big deal. But a faster way that I like to go is using image trace. So I've got the image trace window popped open here. If you just go to window, you can go to image trace, and it'll open up here in this larger view. So I've got this popped open, and I want to image trace this image, and say image a bunch of times. So the first thing I'm going to do, you look, they've got these presets here. You're going to start with one of these presets. Now, I have one saved here as my base trace. This is just where I start. It's what I called it. It gets me 90% of the way every time. But what it is based on, the foundation of my base trace, what I started with, is this black and white logo. Now, you can try all these others, and if you have multiple colors, a lot of times you can try the, what starts off as the 3 colors, and it will do a pretty good job. I mean, as you can see there, it didn't really change very much. So there are a lot of times where this works out pretty well. If I zoom way into the text, I can see a little bit of variance. It's not necessarily, so this K kind of does a little curvy here, and it's not necessarily what I wanted. So a lot of times this 3 color or even more will get you a lot of the way. And you could change the number of colors here. I could drop this down to 2, and it's going to do the same thing. But what I want to show you with this one is I have 2 colors in this design, right? That's what your first thought is. Well, I've got a red, a black. But when I selected 2 colors, it just did red. But there's also white. Okay, so it's thinking the white is a color, and the red's a color, and the black is a color. And so that's why we need to be at 3. So always include the white as part of your calculation when you're trying to determine which one to set here. So a lot of times this 3-color or any of these will kind of get you where you need to go. If not, what I like to use is just this black and white logo. And you can see this does everything black. It does the white and the black. I could also do ignore white here, but I don't really want to do that. I want to keep that off. So what I want to do here, where I normally start is, and this looks pretty good, I normally start with noise pretty low. I normally start with corners pretty high, almost all the way up, and same thing with paths. And so if I zoom in and take a look at this now, you can see my letters look pretty good. I've got some kind of curvature on the bottom of these. I could always repair that. If I increase my threshold, that's where I'm really going to get some benefit here. You can see it kind of play with some different settings here. I could begin to drop down the number of paths from here, and it's going to, if I grab it, you see it's kind of looking a little better. Make sure that these are flat across the tops and bottoms. So that looks pretty good. Let's say that was good to go, and now I could just expand this. If I go to up here, I can click expand, or I could go to object, expand, and now it is a vector file. Now you can see these are objects. If I double click into this, I can ungroup it. This Command-Shift-G, ungroup it, and I can select just the white here. I usually go select same, fill in stroke, selects all the white, and I just delete it. So now I have just if I scoot this over off the artboard, you can see I have just the vector objects in here. This is no longer going to lose any resolution. I can make this as big or small as I want. Now I can go in with the pen tool or with the direct select tool, and I can make some tweaks here if I want to, there's some certain areas that didn't really turn out well, like this one's a pretty sharp corner and that should be a little more curved. So I'm going to pull these little grab handles up and make that a little cleaner. But I didn't have to go manually through all of this with a pen tool and recreate this. I can just use these handles after I've used the image trace to make this look a lot cleaner and get most of the way there, or get the rest of the way there, sorry. Now then I could take and select just a certain area and give it the fill color that it needs. And now I ended up with the image that I want. Now, keep in mind that this was not a spot color. I do have some spot colors up here, and they're noted by this little spot on the corner here. But any color that I have, if I want to take this color, and I could double click over here. I could change it that way. Actually, I want to go over here and say new swatch and spot color. Click that, and now you can see my swatch is a spot color, and now I can export this and print some films through my RIP software. Let's take a look at this one up here. This one has 2 colors as well, but I want to show you the difference in a large image versus a small one. Now, this one was a really big image when I grabbed this off of Google. It was like 2,000 pixels wide, which is fantastic. If somebody sends you a raster image that's that big, it's going to be great. If I go to image trace here and I go to black and white logo, or I'm just going to do my base trace, which is the same as the black and white logo. It just has everything already turned up for me. Now you can see this looks great. I mean, everything, I've got a little bit of squiggly down here at this corner. The edges are a little bit rough. So if I drop down my paths a little bit, you can see that cleans those up. If I look down here at this other side, maybe I can increase the threshold. Let's just decrease it. Nope, we'll lose the other color if we increase or decrease. Okay, let's drop the corners. Maybe that'll help. All right, so now in this instance, this is what I'm talking about it being 90% of the way. So I could bring this up and it's going to get rid of a little bit of dots if I keep going, and if these, you see how that disappeared, but I don't necessarily want to do that. I mean, that's not really the look we're going for. So in this instance, I would just expand this and I would go in here and just clean this up myself. This would be the manual part. But again, rather than having to create this entire thing manually, I've gotten 90% of the way. I just got to clean up a little bit. Now let's look and see. Let me go to, let's release this image trace. If you want to start over, this is where you just release. So let me make this pretty small. And then let me just take a screenshot of it here. You see my screenshot's only 160 pixels wide. So this is tiny. Let's paste this in, and now let's zoom in and take a look at this. You can see it's blurry. I mean, heavily pixelated. So let's see what image trace does with this. It looks way worse, right? So you can see that, you know, image trace is only going to be beneficial if the image itself is pretty big. You know, let's do another one here. We can see, let's zoom in just a little bit more. I'll do another screenshot. Oop, I don't want the bounding box. So this one's now 300 pixels. Let's take a look at this. Still pixelated, but not as bad. Okay, so that's a little better. I could get most of the way with this. I mean, so, you know, the airplane doesn't look too bad. And don't be afraid to duplicate and work on one to get part of the image. You know, I've got the boat and a little bit of the text looking pretty good. I can take some of these curves off. Maybe some of the text is looking better that way. Let's add the curves back. Nope. There we go. That looks pretty good. The text looks pretty good here. A boat's not bad. I mean, that actually looks pretty cool, you know, with that. The airplane, you know, now the airplane looks better in this one. So maybe I'm going to take the airplane out of this one. And over here, I'm going to focus on the boat. So this is getting me a little closer. There we go. That's looking a little better. Let's take some of the paths down. Let's leave the corners pretty high because we want some sharp corners here. So now the boat looks pretty good. So I've been able to piece together an image here focusing on the three different areas. And I have my surround here that I could clean up if I wanted to. So what I would do in this scenario is I would select all three of these. We don't want this one. Let's select all three of these. I'm going to expand those. And one at a time, I'm going to just line these up. So if I select them all, I'm just going to align right here. So now they're all lined up. And then I'm going to select, double click into each of them individually and select the parts that I don't want. Oh, same, fill and stroke, delete. Now I don't want the airplane in this one. I don't want the text in this one. Okay, so we're good there. Let's see what this one is. This one was the airplane. So let's double click into here and delete everything except for the airplane. And now this one was the text. So let's double click into here, delete that. I have a little bit of white left. Now I have the text. So you can see that got me way closer than initially, you know, when you were trying to image trace and get it all into the same area. So, or get all the entire graphic traced all at once. So sometimes it works to just piece them together like that and to image trace the same image with different settings multiple times to piece together the different parts of the image so that you then are left with a vector file. And so now I have a much better file here. I can select, I can double click into here and select these different areas. I could take my eyedropper, and now I have, you know, some better colors. Let's take this and make it the blue. This and make it the blue. And this one as well. Make it the blue. All right, so that's a little off. Because it was shaded. Let's do this. Ungroup. Command-Shift-G. And now I can select these individually and make this the same color. Okay. So now we're good. See, I've got some cleaning up to do. You know, I mean, the gold around is not too bad. There's a little bit more detail here that I've kind of missed out, but that would be way easier to accomplish than, redoing the entire thing. I could just take a circle here. And pop this over a little bit, select these both. And see, I've got a little bit more rounded area right there. So, it's a much easier cleanup after the fact, but this can get you most of the way. Now, maybe these weren't good examples, but hopefully that does help you at least get a little more comfortable with converting a raster file to vector so that you can begin to practice with this. Play around with that image trace tool. Like I said, I use it a bunch. It gets me 90% of the way most of the time. And then I just have to do some cleanup afterwards, or maybe there's some area like I just did there where there's one part of the image I can use the image trace on, and then the rest of it I have to do manually, but at least there was a portion that I could at least speed up and not have to do manually. And, obviously you want to take the time to make sure this artwork is converted correctly and that it looks good and it looks like what your customer initially sent you. But this can get you most of the way, and then you can clean up from there. But hopefully it can save you some time, because our time is money, and the more time you spend on something, you're losing money. Especially if you're not charging extra for artwork or design time. Maybe you are just gaining the experience, or maybe you're not comfortable charging for design time quite yet, and that's okay. But this can help you get a little bit more comfortable with handling the files that customers send you, because people will send you terrible files. They will send you raster files that you need to convert to vector. I get people all the time that send me an image that I need to convert, and it's usually their logo that they have, but they don't have the original from where it was originally created, which is just mind blowing to me. But it is what it is, and people do it. I even had somebody ask me if they could fax me the artwork for the shirts, and that was a long time ago, and the answer was no. So it's important to know how to convert this stuff. And if you can get it most of the way there, you can practice on it. Don't waste too much time on this stuff. If you need to outsource it, go ahead and outsource it. But hopefully this helps you feel more comfortable with doing this process, and at least gain an understanding of the difference between raster and vector, and so that you can convey that to your client and say, hey, I need a vector image. And make sure you let them know that oftentimes this is an image that ends in .ai, .eps, sometimes .pdf, but you can still have a raster image embedded in a vector file. And just because they send you a .eps or a .ai does not mean that it's going to be vector. I can embed this file here, and I could save this as a .ai or .eps, and I could send that out. And just because it's that file type does not mean it's a vector file. It is a vector file type with a raster image embedded in it, and that's still not usable. So that's important. And I've had designers, people who are the person creating a company's logo, and they say, I'm going to have my art person or my design person or the person who created this send you. And I'll say, okay, send me a vector file. And they'll send me an AI file with a raster image embedded in it. And it's, I'm just horrified. So don't do that. If you're that person, don't do that. But it's okay if the customer sends you, if all they have is raster. I always ask for vector, but if all they have is raster, that's okay. Hopefully this will help you convert this. Now, if you've tried this and you've hit some roadblocks and you can't figure it out, let me know. I want to help. Or if you're in a bind and you have a customer that sent you a file and you really need to get this order created, or you're in a time crunch, let me know. Let me create it for you. Let me help you out. Let's share some emails back and forth, and let me help you with some tips so that you can do it. Or if you're in a time crunch, let me do it for you. So happy to help you out with that. And we'll be sure to make that affordable for you as well, because you guys are just getting started and I want to help. So let me know if you have any questions. If there are any other Illustrator questions, it's hard for me to think of this stuff because I don't know where you're at. I don't know what your experience is, and I don't know the struggles you're having. And I've been using this stuff since I was 14. So this is, a lot of it's second nature to me. And I struggle to go as detailed enough that you guys need. And so let me know what you need. Let me know how I can help. There are no stupid questions, and it cannot be too basic. So even the most beginner questions, let me know. Maybe you want to know how to set up your sidebars over here, or maybe you need some help setting up a template file like I have here. If you've watched my proof video, I talk a little bit about my template, and I'm happy to show you guys how to set that up. Maybe I'll do a video on that. So whatever it is, let me know how I can help you, because that's my goal here. That's all I want to do, is help as many people as possible with everything that has to do with creating, starting, running, growing a successful screen print business from home. And so let me know how I can help you do that. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Give me a like if you don't mind. If you enjoyed this video, if you have some feedback, let me know what it is. I want to get better. I want to bring more valuable content to you guys. So I'd love to hear your feedback. Be sure you're following me on Instagram at Startup Screen Printing. Look for me there. And until then, we'll catch you guys in the next video. And I hope you have a great day.